welcome back to Push to Be More. I'm Sadaf Beynon, one of your co-hosts, and today we've got another great conversation about what it takes to make life work. Joining me today is our special guest, John Rich, and I'm excited for us to hear about his unique life experiences, the hurdles he's had to push through, the ways he recharges his spirit, and the steps he's taking to be more. In other words, it's all about push to be more. This episode is brought to you by Pod Junction, where we're all about helping businesses share their stories and build real connections through the power of podcasting. Being part of the team at Pod Junction, I've seen firsthand how podcasting can be a game changer for reaching people and for making real impact through meaningful conversations. Now, I know a lot of you listening are leaders and entrepreneurs, and if you're curious about what podcasting can do for your business, or if you're wondering where to even start, head over to podjunction.com. We'd love to help you and make the process clear and approachable for you. Podcasting offers a unique way to expand your reach and connect with your audience in ways that you may not have considered. And honestly, it's way easier than you might think. So head over to podjunction.com and see what podcasting can do for you. And now, meet John. John is the founder of A Rich Opinion, a PR and marketing firm born from his bold decision to challenge the status quo in an industry that often settles for good enough. After a career spanning politics, tech, and strategic communications, John set out to rewrite the rules by seamlessly blending PR and marketing to deliver tangible results. When he's not helping small teams achieve big wins, he's tackling the ups and downs of entrepreneurship with grit and creativity. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sadaf, for inviting me. I'm excited.
It's great to have you, John.
Yeah.
As you know, I run Pod Junction, which is also the sponsor of this show. So the first question we like to ask is, if you had your own podcast and could invite anybody to be your guest, who would you have on as a guest and why?
So we briefly chatted about this before we hit record, and I was going back and forth, and I'm going to risk being cliche here, but I think the person I landed on was Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you're going to ask me why, so I'm happy to go into it.
Yes, please do.
Of course, he's successful, loved by many, disliked by many. But I think, as I've gotten older, I've realized that thinking differently and not approaching problems or everyday topics through the light that everyone else does is as I grow older and as I kind of continue along in my business, that you kind of need that element of thinking differently. And I think with him, not only just through whether it's creating the first, electric vehicle at scale. Certainly, I mean, we saw his company catch, essentially a reusable, rocket thruster, which I don't think has been done before. I'm pretty sure has been done before. And so clearly his approach to solving problems, approach to listening to people is different. In a lot of his interviews, he thinks differently as well and is really unafraid, in terms of how he thinks about things, his opinions. And again, that has led some to not like him, but has led a lot of others, to like him and has led to him success. So, I would just be curious to see where he's gotten that from, how he developed that, because I think that is developed at a young age. Mm-hmm. And I think I am more so growing into that mold where I am trying to go with my instinct, and lead with my creativity, my ideas, my intuition, versus just trying to be safe when it comes to my business, my clients, my solutions, things of that nature.
I agree. I think he's a real interesting person. Mm-hmm. And I agree with all that you've said. He's successful. He's unafraid. He thinks differently. The way he comes at things is so out of the box.
Yep.
I love that too. I also find it interesting that you've said that his intuition and his instincts are also probably he's probably got those from a young age. And I wonder too what his story is, if you get under all those layers. What kinds of questions would you want to ask him?
Well, I mean, I'm fascinated by, first off, his upbringing. I think typically, and again, I have maybe we got into it, but I have two young boys and I have a fresh third 2-month-old. So, I think I've thought really hard about how to raise children and kind of, how do I equip them in ways that I wasn't equipped, and as I grew up and my upbringing, and I see a lot of themes, and this notion of privilege, safety, comfort, I think is very harmful in a way when you're raising people, or just in the human spirit. I think for too long I have been comfortable in my career. I have just said, hey, I get paid well, I have a home, and I'm blessed and I'm thankful every day for those things. But at the same time, there needs to be a push to be more, right? We need to kind of challenge ourselves and get them comfortable. And so some questions I would ask him were, in reading some of the stories about how he and his partners co-founded PayPal, which is, one of the first kind of online, payment platforms. Certainly it's more than that, but just hearing stories of, instead of him renting an apartment, he slept in their office buildings, on the couch every day, and put in, 18-hour days and things like that. And most people wouldn't do that. And it's and that we would probably see that as normal. It's like, no, I'm not going to slum it in, an office building. But at the same time, he was driven, he was young, he had an idea, he went for it. And so just to understand his thought process through all that, and just kind of to hear how he would explain that and why he did that, I think would be really fascinating and very encouraging for anyone that would listen.
Yeah, I agree. And also interesting what you said about your kids. I think parenting really does have a way of unearthing a lot of our own motivations and what we're trying to pass on to our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding, also that it's not too old. You're not too old to change. You're not too old to try and accomplish more, to try and challenge yourself, your ideas, how you approach things, and just trying to grow, trying to be a better human. And so it's just, again, thinking differently, right? Certainly people that have a full-time job, great. I have that. I might end up going back to that, quite frankly, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think testing myself, or testing, challenging yourself in different ways, I think, to your point, helps you realize who you are as a person. I think helps you grow as a person. And maybe if you make more money or provide value or employ people, that's a plus if you do that along the way as well. So it's just, again, thinking differently and looking at things in a different manner to try and grow and be and do more.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And actually, you talked about challenges. Why don't we jump into that? Tell us about a challenge or challenges that you have faced in the past. I know you've kind of alluded to some, but would love to know more.
Yeah, I think from a larger, like, development phase, I've always felt comfortable, and my dad always told me, like, once you feel comfortable, you need to kind of move on to a different role, a different job. And so I've really tried to do that, but I always sought comfort. And I think my biggest regrets is being a young person out of undergrad. Is instead of trying to necessarily make a lot of money, or trying to, get an apartment and go in line with everyone else, I wish I had an idea, or I wish I was focused on something so adamantly that perhaps I was okay with maybe sleeping in a car, for a couple of years, or, living in an apartment that was a closet for a couple of years and focused on something. And I think that is a challenge that I've had to overcome mentally, is just, hey, you need to embrace the challenges. You need to face them head on, instead of just trying to, get by. And I'm not saying we need to seek problems or seek challenges, but, if you have a dream or a goal, go after it, and, learn to deal with adversity. And so that was one. And I think more specifically about, when I started my own company, the understanding that when you have clients, and when I first started this, I had a handful of clients that said that they were, hey, like, we're interested, we're going to go. And so when I left my full-time job, I assumed that all of them would come. Like, hey, well, verbally they said it. They're like, hey, we'll do business. We're interested in what you do. We need your help. And so naively, I took that as those folks were gonna employ me, were gonna work with me, and everything would be fine. And I knew that there would be a bit of a runway, right? I think whether that's 6 months, 12 months of like, hey, this is going to take some time, but we'll be fine. And I quickly realized that a lot of those folks are like, hey, money's not there, or we'll do it next quarter, or, we have something we want to roll out first. And so a lot of those folks didn't come with me, and I'm still kind of developing them as leads and staying in touch with them. But I think one challenge, if I had to speak to entrepreneurs, is just, prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and, really prepare for worst case scenarios, really tighten up, really, be lean, and just hope for the best.
So if you were to go back and do it all again, and I know you said your clients didn't end up coming with you, how would you have done things differently?
That's a good question. I would have focused more. I would have focused more on the business development aspect. I mean, I did, and I had some pipeline like platforms or ways, right? So whether that's creating content, whether that's having some sort of like a HubSpot outreach system, whether that's some of these marketplaces where you can pay for leads, I probably would have leveraged all of them more aggressively. And furthermore, I probably would have expanded what my role was, or I guess what my concentration was. I think early on, I perhaps overlooked some leads that maybe were not in the industries or the lanes that I wanted to be in, thinking that it would get a little easier, but that was not the case. And so I probably would have expanded my practice a little more. And then as I got more clients, or as I developed more skills, really focused on a lane that I felt I could excel in, and really focus on those customers.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. How did not having them come with you, and just that, walking through that or navigating that process, how did that shape your approach then to your business? And I guess maybe even go further about how did that whole experience affect your life outside of the business as well? Because I'm sure it would have had a knock-on effect, right?
Yeah. So, I probably. Sorry, would you mind re-asking that question? I apologize.
Sorry, I did lay a lot on you.
No, it's okay.
All right, so maybe tell me first how that experience shaped you.
Yeah, okay. I think it hardened me. I think what I realized was that this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. And I kept telling myself, hey, if this was easy, I think everyone would be doing it, right? Everyone would be, wealthy. Everyone would be, doing their own thing. So it hardened me as an individual in a good way. It forced me to address some of the inadequacies about my business model. It forced me to address my practices, and it forced me to kind of, again, think differently and say, hey, initially I didn't have a HubSpot type platform where I did cold prospecting. And so, because I didn't think I would need it. And now I was forced to learn it. I was forced to understand how that platform works. I was forced to get out of my comfort zone of creating content on LinkedIn, some of those things. So I think it forced me to think differently and address, some of those issues. So.
Yeah, no, that's...
Sorry, my dog. 1 second.
It's okay.
Thankfully, this morning's been a little interesting between, setting up and everything else. So I appreciate it.
No, not at all. So you mentioned that it hardened you in a good way. And I think as you were saying that, it was, I was thinking like actually life is full of disappointments and challenges. And it's really how you respond to those that really makes you, doesn't it? And I love to see that it forced you into growth and to look internally and how to make it better for yourself rather than to be hardened and, be disappointed and walk the opposite direction. So that's very cool.
Yeah. And I would say too, just on that again, it's it's not necessarily disappointment or what yield comes from that. It's about addressing it, right? I mean, I think you're not going to be successful all the time. I mean, life literally, you're going to fail more often than not. You just hope that your failures are minimal or low value and that you can bounce back, right? I think, we're trying to teach my children. I think what we need to learn as business owners is that, we need to fail cheaply. So we need to try things that maybe the failure, the value of that failure is minimal. It won't necessarily have a large impact on us. And we need to do that as often as possible. Whereas certainly we need to take bold decisions and that needs to be calculated. But making to your point, I think that's a great way that when you face disappointment, it's how you react to it. When you fall, how quickly will you get back up?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I agree. And actually going back to what we were talking about earlier with Elon Musk, you were talking about his at a young age, he must have learned to have those particular instincts and that intuition, which he's been probably honing over the years. And it's interesting to hear you talk about your response to your failures and your disappointments. And I'm interested to know if there was something in your upbringing that helped you to be able to respond in such a positive way to this.
That's a good question. There's to be truthful. I didn't incur a lot of challenges. I think as a kid, and I think that's what kind of throughout most of my life led me to kind of seek comfort because, whether it was being an athlete or being at school, I think I always kind of, in the opposite of your question, I think I always kind of glided in a good sense. And I'm not trying to say I'm smart or athletic. I just, I don't think I ever really pushed myself because I was always, doing well. I was always, making sports teams. I was always doing well in class. I didn't necessarily have to push to be more. And I think that, settling in that layer of comfort, I think was a little detrimental, quite frankly, as a young person. And now I'm starting to realize that as I'm a father and seeing that I need to lean into it. Or to my point, there's certain things even in this current job that I enjoy doing more so. And, I'm trying to lean into that so that I can become really good at, whether that's editing videos or whether that's, doing messaging or simply, speaking or working with clients. I think learning to be really good at something specific, I think is it's good business, but also if you like doing it, you're good at it. If you're good at it, you're going to like doing it. Right. And so this kind of this flywheel of this repetitive of like, I like doing this. I'm really good at it. I'm making money off it. Oh, I'm having more fun. I'm making, where I'm being more successful. And so I think, that's really, I think what has to happen, in order to be more and build something.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying because earlier you said that your dad would say, don't stay in the comfortable. So I guess I can see the picture. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I listened to him a little more, I guess.
Well, you're passing it on to your kids. You did hear him.
I'm trying.
Yeah. So what would you say has been the toughest part of going solo? And how do you think that's helped you grow as a leader?
Realizing that no one's there to save you, that no one is going to back you up. I mean, certainly I have a great support system with my wife and family, but and friends and some mentors. But at the end of the day, no one's coming to save you. When you work at a company or in a corporation, you can hide behind maybe your supervisors. You can hide behind the work of your teammates. You have maybe associates that maybe can help kind of do some of the grunt work. But at the end of the day, no one's coming. And when you have clients that are on, monthly contracts, whether it's 3, 6, 12 months, you have to show enough for them to remain a client, right? Whereas if you're an employee, all you have to really do is show up, be kind, and get the work done. I mean, let's be honest, right? If you're an employee, you don't really have to go above and beyond. You just need to be kind. Don't start drama at work, show up on time, and just do the work you're assigned, and you'll be fine. And so here as an entrepreneur, someone that does it myself, I have to do everything from basic research to high level presentation. I mean, everything needs to be done by me. I can't count on anyone else. And if I fail, no one else is going to come save me. So just realizing that, I am me. It is just me. And I need to succeed. I need to complete the task,
Yeah. So do you have a team around you?
No, no. I mean, I have contractors or vendors, right? Whether it's certain creative work, I can lean on people perhaps for different writing projects. But in terms of the actual work, no. I don't have a team around me. I think I've certainly called mentors about specific, whether it's contract negotiation, whether it's navigating something that I've never done before, or just certainly speaking to my wife often and just asking her opinion. So in that sense, I have a good support system, but as for a team, no, I don't. So, yeah.
Oh, sounds, running your own business is quite, all consuming, I gather. So how do you make sure you're being able to show up for your family, your business? How do you do that?
It's a great question. When I have the answer, I'll let you know. It's constantly just trying to juggle things. It's constant thought on if I'm doing things the right way. It's a constant struggle, which is beautiful, right? I think it's facing challenge and trying to figure out the Rubik's Cube of life, family, and business, I think is very difficult, but it's a challenge worth striving for. It's a challenge worth trying to solve. So,
yeah. Do you have certain habits or certain things that you do on a consistent basis to help you decompress?
I like to go outside. So spending all day at your desk, as I'm sure anyone can imagine, can get very tiring and monotonous. So I like to go outside. I do a lot of yard work. In the summer growing seasons, we have a couple garden beds, and I put in some fruit trees that I maintain. And right now, kind of building a tree house for my boys, and then hoping to kind of build some other structures on the property. So just trying to get outside and work with my hands and get some fresh air, because being stuck in this room is can feel like a jail cell sometimes.
I can imagine. I can imagine. It's interesting. I think being in the elements, being outdoors, really does have a rejuvenating effect on your body and on your spirit.
100%. Yeah, just getting outside. Obviously, the vitamin D from the sun, just walking. Just understanding that. Quite frankly, also, life is more than work. So when you're walking outside and you're just taking in the elements, nature, you're realizing that, it's maybe a mistake you made earlier. Maybe you made a mistake on a phone call, or you did the wrong thing, or, you spelled the client's name wrong accidentally.
Yeah.
And you're very upset or just annoyed by it. When you walk outside, you just kind of realize, hey, listen, tomorrow's a new day. The world keeps spinning. It's a good reset, just to remind you that everything will be okay.
Yeah.
So,
looking at your journey, what does growth mean to you today?
Certainly. Well, I'll take that from the business side. What does growth mean to me? I think it's really finding. I feel like I'm good at a lot of different things. But it's really finding, hey, what do I want to focus on, and where does my business go from here, right? Because business is going to evolve. Businesses always evolve over time. And so growth for me is kind of realizing the value that I bring to my clients, and more specifically, what do I bring to them? What makes me special and different from other people, right? Because I'm a marketing and PR person. I'm a dime a dozen. There's plenty of us out there. There's plenty of capable, really smart, intelligent people with a lot of media relationships, right? And so understanding what makes me different, how I stand out, and when I truly find that, then I could really start to build a strong business, bring on teammates, and bring more clients on, and really deliver results that I want.
Yeah, I hear you. It's hard to understand how to differentiate in certain industries, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in especially in my industry, things are constantly changing. The digital landscape is different. I talk about PR and marketing, and I think it's really hard to I guess separate the two right now. To me, I think PR, marketing, and content, or you can say brand too, perhaps. I think all of them are just, it's one bucket. And typically under a corporate structure, they are typically under the VP of marketing, it's all essentially a marketing function. But I think more and more as the digital media landscape continues to grow, I mean, it's been growing for, 15 years, 10, 15 years. I think it's just going to continue to grow. And so the traditional function of media relations and PR, it's still there, but when you forecast 5 to 10 years, I think it's going to look much different. And I think marketing and PR and content are going to come closer and closer together to kind of be one single kind of industry or lane, essentially.
Yeah. So how do you see this change then shaping the future of your business?
Well, I've been trying to lean into content more. And I think in the last especially the last 5 years, but in the last 10 years, I think people are starting to realize the power of social media, and that it's simply not just, a platform to post pictures and connect with friends. I think, when you look at platforms like Substack and LinkedIn, very much B2B focused platforms that if you're not on right now, you are years behind. If you're not putting time and effort into those platforms, into creating content, quality content to put on those platforms, I think you're very far behind. I believe that the media landscape is dramatically changing. Traditional media is, I hate to say it, is dying. I think there's certainly still going to be a role for it, but we've seen, stories of layoffs from local publications to national publications. And I think there's still a ton of value in having a good public relations or PR function. But if you're going to continue to hope and put resources into securing media placements to boost your own brand, I think, especially for younger startups, smaller firms that I work with, putting all your eggs into that basket, I think is going to be very challenging, and the ROI will not be there. And so for my business, it's trying to get my clients to focus on creating quality content as much as possible, to not only build a community on these B2B platforms, LinkedIn, Substack, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And then as you grow, there's this kind of domino effect where you can get better placements, you can get more recognition, and perhaps you're getting mentioned by maybe, a tier 2 or tier 1 publication. So
where do you see the greatest opportunities for growth then in your business and yourself as well?
In my business, it's video. I've been really trying to understand, how to video edit. And so what I do from my business perspective is I kind of see myself as a Swiss Army knife for kind of these younger companies. And so I'm able to, do the media pitching, place the marketing ads. So not only paid marketing, but develop the marketing content, right? And so doing the basic graphic design, and then, helping them shoot videos and edit videos. And so right now I'm trying to learn how to really perfect the craft of short form videos, right? So, 15 seconds, 30 seconds at most, understanding how, what types of videos and what techniques really grab the attention of people online, right? I think Mr. Beast, I don't know, I'm sure you're aware of Mr. Beast on YouTube. I mean, I listened to an interview with him, and, he was well ahead of the YouTube curve, but he was so focused on what got people engaged. And, before he was giving away, $10 million in Africa, he was focused on, what techniques and tactics in the first 3 seconds, the first 10 seconds, what gets people engaged. He was very interested in understanding the analytics behind his videos and why people were dropping off and doing all these different things. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do right now, is learn some of those techniques and tactics, so that I can do that, for my clients, and hopefully, they'll see the results from those. I think, from a growth perspective, again, it's just understanding where to put my efforts in, not only in my business, but as kind of an individual. How early do I need to wake up? How hard do I need to work? What is important, right? Is this email that I have to get off more important than spending time with my family? Spending time with my wife after the kids go down, is this assignment more important than the quality time I'd spend with her? How does that add up, in my personal life and in my relationships? So it's a constant balance and understanding, where do I invest?
Yeah, I hear you. And I love how you described yourself as a Swiss Army knife. I think that's great. But I also understand that it'd be hard to find that balance and being or doing everything at the same time is really, really difficult to pull off. So,
Yeah. And I talked to, some friends that have pretty established businesses now. And I asked them, I was like, hey, like, how do you juggle, you know, your other obligations outside of business? And some guys are like, hey, I had to work, 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week. One of my friends worked on the weekends for the first like 3 years.
yeah.
And and so it's that constant question of how much do I put into it versus, how much do I take away from my family or from my friends or from my hobbies? It's that constant balancing. And so at a certain point, you have to make a decision every day, but also on a larger picture point, you have to make a decision about your life. Like, hey, do I want to make this work or do I just want to have best of both worlds? And is that possible to have the best of both worlds?
Yeah. And I imagine it would be for a time as well. It's not forever in a day.
Yeah. What's the point, right? I mean, if someone said to me, like, hey, if you work 80 hours a week in your business for a year, and then after that year, you will, become a millionaire and you can build out a team, right? To me, that's a no-brainer, right? I would totally put that time in, even if it was 2 years. I think the question that a lot of people have when they start this is, if they're in the middle, because a lot of people are so motivated that, again, they're willing to work really hard. But I think a lot of people, at least the question I'm having is, is it going to take 3 years? Is it going to take 5 years? How does that, how do I reconcile that? You know what I mean? And so it's a choice that you kind of have to make every day and just try and do your best.
Yeah. I realize this might be a bit far off at this point, but how do you see yourself, as you bring on potential team members? How do you see your leadership style evolving as you do that?
Well, I think specifically bringing on teammates, I have this vision of, I think, where business goes in a sense. I've had incredible bosses, and I've had the privilege of kind of seeing different business models, essentially being up close. And I think as I bring on team members, I actually don't want, technical employees. I think bringing on kind of a cooperative of contractors and vendors together that are aligned, I think is the best model. And I think that's the best way to be a leader. Employees are sometimes hard to motivate, and I think sometimes hard to keep accountable. Not all of them, and probably most of them are very good. But I think when you align incentives with, hey, I need someone to be a copywriter. So, right, in an ideal world, I'll have someone that does the copywriting, that maybe does someone that does the creative elements, and someone that does the graphic design, right? And so we could all kind of team up together to have responsibilities on a client project, and then just basically say, hey, we're all going to share in the growth of this client. So if you're able to do a good job, if we're all doing a good job, we can capture more revenue, or you get more success, based on how well you do. And I think that's probably the best model in terms of motivating. And so just finding the right people and empowering them. One of my mottos has always been, let's not make perfect the enemy of the good. Certainly we want to be detail oriented and making sure we're doing a good job and the right thing. But also, I've learned when I've managed 7 clients at a time for, other companies, it's, it's very easy to overanalyze. It's very easy to try and be perfect and do the right thing. But at the same time, we just got to kind of keep moving and just make good product and be confident in what we're doing, and then keep going. So I think that's a really important leadership style, is just empowering people and aligning everyone's incentives.
That's cool. It sounds like your varied experiences before you got to this point has really helped shape some of your ideas for how you want to run things yourself when the time comes.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest elements that the reason I like working, and one of the main reasons I started working for my own, is just the transparency and honesty. I think oftentimes when you're working with the clients on behalf of someone else, you have to really be careful about what you say. And I'm not going to sit here and say I act any differently than I was when I was an employee, but it's just understanding you're representing another brand or someone else in your business dealings. And so for instance, in an old company I used to work for, we had a very strict offering of like kind of PR, like we had certain elements of our business, whether that was drafting newsletters or we had certain answers to questions, and those we were really good at those answers. We were really, really good at those deliverables. And so we really, every answer to some of those questions were those elements. And over time, I saw that, hey, we should be offering different things, or hey, they really need these things over here, whether that's a different service that maybe we can provide, but maybe it's not cost effective, or maybe, we can't deliver on that particular project. And so we always steer them back into this. And so I think a large part of the reason why I went on my own is just having the honesty to say things like, hey, I'm probably not the best person for you, or like, hey, this is not going to work. Or, my favorite example is, clients often want to spend, 20 grand on a sizzle reel or, 3-minute video. And I'm like, yeah, it looks great. It's going to be, 4K quality. The imagery is going to be awesome. I mean, it's going to be a really good product, but at the end of the day, is it going to drive the impact that you want? Are you going to get the leads from it? Are you going to be able to use this in a lot of different varieties? And oftentimes I find, certain projects like that don't have the ROI. And so maybe, in my old company, we're friends with the video contractor. And so, hey, yeah, let's do this video. I think it's going to look great. And that might not necessarily be the case. Right. And so again, having the freedom and the transparency to be honest with clients, I think is a huge weight off my shoulders, and why I love working for myself.
Yeah. And that would be such a gift for your client as well. They might not see it right away, but, being upfront like that, I think is really is the best way to go.
Yeah. And I think people respond to it well, because I think, again, at the end of the day, cultivating clients and retaining clients is just being yourself and being honest. And I think if people are comfortable with you and can rely on you and know that you're being honest with them, I think that goes a long way, especially if you make a mistake, which we're all going to make mistakes, is so long as you're honest with them in your successes and in your failures, I think they're going to continue to rely on you and count on you as, as a friend, but as a business partner.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it also helps you leave a mark as well, that this is what I stand for as a business. This is what I do. And that's where your reputation begins to grow.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, and I've also found that, the easiest business lead are referrals, right? And so it's really hard to capture new leads potentially, especially in my field, because again, there's so many of us. So, focus on delivering for the clients you have, and so that they feel so confident and comfortable in referring, you out to their partners or to their friends. And so I've learned that, while obviously business development is incredibly important, making sure you're achieving and you're exceeding, the value you promised, I think is a huge way to get more clients.
Yeah, no, that's very good. John, if any of our listeners want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
LinkedIn is my best publication, or my best platform. So arichopinion.com on LinkedIn. No spaces after the handle. And my website is arichopinion.com. And my name is John Michael Rich on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. So we'll make sure to link to your info on the show notes, which our listeners can get for free along with the transcript at our website, pushtobemore.com.
Great.
Awesome. John, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sadaf. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, right back at you. Well, that's a wrap on another great conversation. A massive thanks to John for joining us and sharing a part of his inspiring journey. For transcript or show notes, do swing by our website, pushtobemore.com. A big thanks to today's sponsor, PodJunction, for all you change makers out there contemplating podcasting as your new vehicle of expression and connection. Please do come connect with us at podjunction.com. Don't forget to follow the show wherever you get your podcasts, because we've got some seriously compelling conversations coming up and we don't want you to miss any of them. So from John and from me, thanks for joining in. Have an awesome week and we'll catch you next time. Bye for now.